Alrighty, Lumberjacks, welcome back to another episode of FDR Logging, because I'm FDR and I am logging. And today we're actually on a new map. So previous map was Green River Valley. That's where I was showing you some of the tips and tricks there. As I mentioned in the last episode that we did on that map, we were moving to a new one. So this is a map that I've already been working on. This one is called Fox Creek, one of my more favorite maps for sure. I really like this one. As you can see, I've been cutting and doing my thing here. I'll just give you guys a little quick tour. So basically, I worked a little bit down here, playing around, coming up the side, and this is kind of where I was talking about in the last one, about how different terrain angles and degrees of ground are going to make it a lot more tricky for logging. So this map's a great example of a little bit trickier styles of logging, because you're on weird terrain, you're on really uneven terrain, and some of it's really jaggy and sharp and ugly. You have different pockets of wood laid in different areas. It just makes it really tricky overall to work. So on Green River Valley, a lot of the stuff we did was all on really nice flat ground. Literally can't screw up on for flat ground. It's really easy. But once you start getting into this stuff, it gets a lot more tricky. I had a bunch of, I think this was right when so this is right when I got the Timber Pro deal going. So I switched over and was going to use this one for testing, but I never got around to it on this map. So I'm going to transport this up. I don't know where to put that, where I'm not going to crash. Let's put it... Ooh, dare we try to put it right in front of it? Where'd we land? On the pile? Oh, inside the processor. Perfect. All right, cool. So again, we're on a lot sharper terrain. It's a lot crazier terrain to work on. You're going to have high stumps are going to be an issue. Weird angles are going to be an issue. Luckily, this machine is a tilter, so we'll be able to kind of like use the tilt dynamics, as you can kind of adjust your cab a bit to try to get a more level keel while you're working. So we're going to play with that a little bit with the buncher. The big one now, sorry, one sec here. I'm just going to turn this music down. It is a little loud. You guys might not hear it as drastically as I do, but it's very loud to me. So again, we're gonna start with the processor. So you have options when you're working in this kind of terrain where it's really tight. I prefer to work short logs, so cutting anything under 8 meters is usually fantastic for these kind of tighter areas. When you start cutting longs in these kind of tighter areas, it's a little bit harder to load them, because when you're trying to swing the longs, you're going to hit trees maybe that you didn't cut, or you'll hit hills that you didn't see, you're working close to. So it's just a lot kind of more sketchy areas to work. So now on this machine, we have it set to 5 meters, but we're going to adjust that. We're going to cut 6s, I think. 6s are a good balance. I like 6s and 7s for most of my trailers. That's usually what I try to keep them at. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to process these in place, because eventually I'm going to plan to forward this stuff out. So I'm going to drive this thing down into this sketchy little spot, and we're going to process on a weird angle. That's the other thing, is you're going to be processing on weird angles. So the adjustment of your head, so you have the ability to set your adjustment angle on your head, how it sits. So if you want to process from that angle, you totally could. You can process from that angle, or you can leave it flat. So in this case, we're not really at a crazy angle yet. So I'm going to just process straight up. So let's grab a couple pieces here. And like I said, I'm just going to lay them out right here. They're probably going to roll back on me a bit, or maybe they won't, which would be nice. If they start rolling downhill, you can turn them so they kind of like turn a piece. Even if you grab like one log, you can turn it so it's facing the opposite direction, so all the other logs will kind of butt up against it. The other thing you can do is if you leave a stump behind or something too, you can pin them up against a stump if that works for you. So I'm just going to make a little pile here. Again, there's not a lot of wood down because this is just a very small bunch, so it's not going to leave a crazy deck here. And then what I could do, and what I plan to do, is come through with the forwarder, and then we can talk a little bit about the forwarder and forwarding techniques. Anytime I get into really weird terrain, trying to bring a skidder in is a little bit more work. That being said, even if the grapple skidder isn't working, like, it's harder to get these angles. Sometimes when you're working on these crazy 45-degree angles or stupid stuff like that, you need to get the wood to a flatter area. You got to move it, right? So you can use a grapple skidder. If you can't get the grapple working, because I know at different angles it's a real pain in the ass trying to get the grapple closed. But if you can't get that working, you can always use the winch on it to hook onto multiple logs and drag them out that way. But even then, sometimes you get in these tighter spots where it's weird angles. It's just a pain. So what I generally do is I will work the bunches where they sit. So I'll process all this wood right here where it's sitting. And again, if you feel like they're starting to roll down the hill, sometimes what I'll do is I'll just take a log. We're going to ruin this log. And I will go like this, and I'll turn it, and I'll just drop it right like that. Just to butt up, something to have it to butt up against. And then take this side. We're going to drop it right there. Oh, I didn't realize that one was quite so short. There we go. So then I'll just leave them kind of like that. So then when they roll down, a lot of the times they'll catch on that. Again, we don't really have enough wood here to even need to do what I just did, but oh, and this tree's in a god-awful location. So you just work them best you can. Sometimes the trees are not going to go the way you want them to go, but you do your best. Now it's just going to sit right on top there. I figured it was going to roll right over those logs, but I guess not. So again, leaving those two logs on the bottom, sometimes we'll just brace the pile a little bit. The physics are never going to be perfect, so, you know, good luck. It's not like real life where you can pound a stake in the ground to block them all or whatnot. And then at the end, I sometimes will just give them a little touch here to kind of put them all together. There you go. So those are going to sit there nice and peacefully. So, again, like I said, I'll come through with the forwarder is going to be my next move. Maybe I'll bunch a little, get ourselves away from it a bit. So we're going to leave this just kind of on a god-awful angle here. Park it and leave it. So we're going to jump in the buncher. So again, like I said, I left these down kind of at a weird sharp angle. So that way I can process them kind of into this little pocket here and they'll sit. So when we come with the forwarder, we'll be able to just clean that up real nice and easy. So again, for people that don't know anything about the leveling cabs, this is a good tutorial for leveling. So leveling cab is a cab that allows you to push a button to adjust the angle of your machine and the way it sits. Inside the cab below that FDR Logging logo, you'll see that little circle with the red line and a white line. So that is my redneck version of the gauge for auto leveling. So when the red line and the white line overlap, it's level. So when they're perfectly overlapped like that, your machine is sitting perfectly level. And as you adjust forward, that line will go more out of sync with the white line. And same in reverse, it'll go out of sync in the opposite direction. So you can go away this way. So if you're ever wondering where level is, look at that line and make sure you adjust it so it's sitting right level. Again, I'm at a weird angle here, so we'll see how it goes as we play, and then I'll adjust it accordingly. So now I'm working a really weird hill right now. So I don't really want to go down anymore because we're kind of maxed out on our range for working down. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to turn. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to pound out a little pile here, just a little pocket, so I can get some room to dump. So I'm going to grab them, and I'm actually just going to drop them right down into this hole, right down into here, so that they're facing uphill. They may slide, but I don't really care. I can always winch them back up if I need to. And I'm just going to leave them there, give myself a little bit of room. I probably need to turn my head on here so that I can grind out a bit of this mulch in here. I try to backblade it if I can figure out where I am. There we go. So I'm going to grab a few of these, scoop, and scoop. Oops. Oh, that was a bad grab. Oop, there we go. And the other thing you're going to find is when you're not working on flat ground, you got to work a little slower. Things are going to move a little slower, and it's not going to be as smooth as when you're cutting on flat ground, because this angled stuff is a little wacky. Your depth perception is going to be a little different too. Stuff that you think is really far away might be closer. Things that you think are really close might be a lot further away than you think. And that's the joys of not having depth perception in this game. So again, I always open the claw a little bit, let them trickle down a bit, and then just do a dump. That's a good spot for them for now, because I can process those uphill. If you're concerned about your high stumps, you can always clean them up after the fact. You can dip your head in and just give them a little zing, clean them up a bit. So it's up to you how far you want to go. I'm going to kind of zip right across this ridge and just keep... We got lots of room in this little pocket down here, so I'm just going to keep dropping trees into these little pockets so the butts are facing uphill. That way, we can come process them later on. Again, it's not much of a tilt to drop them down here. And then just leave them kind of on that edge so that the butts are facing upwards. And again, slow moving. Do not rush it when you're working on hills, because the faster you swing, as you can see, my machine is not sitting very happily level on the ground. As I rotate around, you'll notice the weight transfers from one track to the other. Now, in this game, it's not so bad when you're in the cab. In the game, it's just a little kind of a-dunk. In real life, it can be quite a violent smash when you come down on the track. So, even if you're playing the game, work slow. You'll be a better operator for it if you take your sweet time. So I'm just snipping these little guys out of the way that I know I can get. See, that one looked a lot closer, but it ain't. Depth perception. Different ground, different terrain. So again, I'm just kind of dropping them right in this little pocket here. Oop, I think I caught a tree there. There we go. Open those claws up a little bit, let wiggle room. And I'm just kind of, like I said, just dumping them in kind of an easy spot there. This is a big fat tree here. Woo, look at that bad boy. Got her. We're going to do the same thing, not hit that tree, hopefully. Perfect. Jeez, that's a real big one. I didn't think I had any big ones on this one. Not that big, anyway. And we're going to just scoop out these two trees here. Swoop. And then we'll grab this one. Should be able to get 3. Oh, yeah, no problem. And again, it's up to you. If you want to keep going across this ridge, you can, or you can turn and start going uphill, if that's really what you want to do. It's entirely your preference, unless you have it marked out. So obviously you could buy paint cans from the store in this game. You could go mark out a block for yourself if you want. Do whatever. Excuse me. So now, this is the fun part. So now we're getting onto some steep slope stuff, or steeper. Maybe not crazy steep, but... So as you're going up this stuff, this machine's pretty good, but you're going to start to get kick out at a certain degree where it's going to be hard to go. So what'll happen is you'll start climbing the hill like so. And what'll happen is if you let go, you'll start to see my tracks aren't digging anymore. They're trying to go, but it's just too steep. They're just slipping. So if I take my feet off the gas, it'll want to just kind of come back down to a neutral state. So this is kind of the fun where you get to play with the winch if you want. So on the front of this thing, is it on the back too? Yeah, front and back of all these machines, there's a winch. So I'm going to grab this winch hitting the R button, as in Roger. And we're going to drag that up. So what I do is I'll aim. So if I'm straight right here, so this is my track, I'm going to make a straight line looking up at the sky, looking up at the trees. I'm going to walk that line, and we're going to keep going up this hill. And it's got a very long reach on this cable, so you can really give her. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect it to a tree that's close in this line. So I think it's going to be this one. And I can't remember how to connect it, so I got to look at my thing here. B is attach it, because I don't use the winch a lot. So what I'll do is I'll actually jump, like using your space bar to jump, or whatever button you're using. And when it gets to its highest point, that's when I connect it. So jump B. So now it's connected up as high as I can get it. That'll give you a nice kind of distance on that line as you work down the hill. And then what I'm going to do is we'll crawl through. So I've got this line set up so it's on my POV look around button. So on that POV look around button, I can tense the line up. As you can see, it's getting tenser. And what I'll do is I'll start crawling forward to where my machine's slipping, so I'm not getting any traction, and then I'll start pulling on that winch line. Just gentle pulls until I start getting traction again. So as I'm going, see, I can feel my machine starting to get traction. Just thinking about it. So now I know for sure that that line is holding me in place. So I'm going to take my feet off the gas here a little bit. Now, my machine's not just sitting, it's actually being held by that winch a little bit. So now... Probably in real life, you want to be really careful you don't cut your cable, but we're going to work around that cable and snip the trees in a line here. Whoop, just like so. Now again, there's different ways I've seen guys do it. Some guys will dump the logs behind them. Some guys will dump the logs uphill, depending if you're dragging them back downhill. Some guys will dump them off to the side. So I'm not super highly versed in... like steep slope logging, just because I've never worked really around it up here as much. So what I tend to do is, depending on where my landing is, so let's pretend this is going to be our landing. So it's all flat down here. This is where I'll want to work. I'm not going to want to climb up this hill to load a trailer or do any of that stuff. So when I'm at the bottom, I'm going to be laying everything off to the side, maybe even a 45, so you can lay it uphill or downhill. That's really up to you. For me, I know I can get this stuff out. I'm probably going to process it where it is, so I'm just going to lay it right here, because that's actually a nice little spot for it to settle, and then I'm going to work up to the next spot. And then we're going to try to get some traction here. Again, I'm just pulling on my winch line just enough to get a little bit of traction, as I can feel my machine's going up the hill now. But I don't want to give it so much traction that it's going to give out. So as soon as I start getting traction, I don't pull on the winch line anymore. I let it go. That's it. I don't want any more. Because if you keep pulling, that winch is going to bungee you and you'll go launching up the hill. Which is not super realistic, but that's just part of the fun of the game. So again, I'm just going to start laying it. This stuff I'm probably just going to lay it like a 45 facing downhill, because we're going to be bringing it downhill, not uphill in this case, which depending on steep slope stuff, I've seen it done both ways where they yard it down and yard it up. So again, depending on your landing and how you're set up, I'm sure that'll make a difference. A little wobbly here. There we go. And we're going to lay that right in there. Shweek. So again, I don't claim to be any kind of professional steep slope logger by any means. So there might be some steep slope guys out there that are like, "No, Jordan, you're doing it totally wrong, man. That's not how you do it." But sometimes the techniques are very subjective in terms of what's right and what's wrong. I've had some of the best loggers I've ever spoken to that have been doing it for 30 years disagree with other loggers that have been doing it for 30 years. I feel if you're getting the wood out and you're not damaging stuff and things are going swell, I don't think there's a super wrong way to do it, as long as you're getting it done. That's kind of where I sit, but that's just one little bear's opinion, so I don't know. You guys can argue it in the comments or something. But honestly, this works pretty good for me. So what I'm planning to do, in this case, we have winch lines, both on the skidder and on these machines. So what I really could do if I wanted to, I'm just going to hop out here for a second. So this stuff's easy. I can just walk over with the processor. We can process this all in a big pile right here. Once we start getting up the hill, I'm not driving the processor up here to chase this wood. It's just not worth it for me. So what I'm probably going to do is I'll park a machine down here, whether it be a skidder or one of these machines, and I'll use that actual winch line on these logs, and I'm going to pull them down to me down below. Or I mean, I could drive the skidder up, winch it that way too, and just drive it down with the skidder. And I'll probably bring those winch logs down into this little opening here, and I'll process it all right here on this nice little flat spot. But we're going to go up this one piece of ridge, drop the trees, and then we're going to come back down, and then we're going to do it again. We can bunch going downhill. It just sucks. It's just not a good time. You can bunch from the side too. Lots of guys do that, where they do angle bunching. I think I've gone over all this stuff in my my bunching videos. When you're winching, it's really smart also to just make sure you stay to that line. Don't try turning your machine side to side off of that track width. You want to stay kind of within that zone while you're working. Otherwise, you're going to start running over your winch. And although that may not have detrimental effects in this game, it's probably just good practice to stay in a line. So again, I'm going to back up a little here. Again, that winch line's getting really slack as I drive up because I'm not tightening it up. So you actually have quite a bit of room to back up. It's not going to snap the winch in this case or anything like that in this game, so you don't have to worry about that. So I'm going to drop this into this pile. And the other thing you got to be aware of is your swing range on your head while you're turning. Because I'm up a hill, these logs are way closer, so I'm maxed out. I can't go any higher. This is my max range of my cylinders. So you got to be a little careful with your movements. Sometimes you're going to kind of paint yourself in a corner in terms of that stuff. So I'm going to go up to here, smoke this out. I would like to get this whole hill, so I would like to keep bunching as far up as we can. And I would like to make a new pile here. I don't really want to drop it in this ditch, though. So maybe what I'll do is I'm going to start dropping... Well, whatever. I'll just dump it on this little edge here. Oops. As long as it's in the edge and not right in the dip, then I'm happy. But we got a bit of a fall on this right side coming down. We're going to try to maneuver that. So again, if you see your winch getting super loose, like your winch line, just tighten it up. Pull your winch key so it kind of floats up a little bit, just so you're not running over your winch line, because that's no good. And again, I'm going to add this piece right to that winch pile right here that I'm planning on pulling in the future. Try to keep your bunches as clean as possible, together as much as possible. You will thank yourself later when you're pulling all this crap down the hill. And try not to hit your winch cable, oops, with your... Oh, what happened there? I caught it on something. Readjusted my tracks. So let's go this way. So as you're coming down, this end is gonna dip down, so you can catch yourself a bit with your head if you want, and just kind of walk your machine down so that you don't fall into those holes. Again, I'm pulling my winch line. You probably don't even really need a winch line at this point because we're pretty good here. But that's okay. You can see your winch line kind of reacts to your head too. So I just leave it down there. Oop, there we go. And I'm gonna make a new pile. If you don't have room, you gotta cut yourself out a little hole there. So we're kind of running out of space. So I'm gonna try to see if I can squiggle it in here. And they're going to slide down. That's kind of the bonus to using a winch to pulling these, is even if they don't line up in a nice bunch, because we're not using a grapple skidder, I'm not too concerned with them falling out of alignment. I'm going to keep tightening up this winch as we go here. We're going to try not to hit our winch line, because that wouldn't be super great. Alright, that's a big pile of trees in that head, very heavy. So we're going to tip this real gentle, open up our head a little so it can find its way through the trees. And then just dump it. Nice. Okay. And again, you got to kind of ride the gain on that. I think from what I've talked to with people in real life and friends that have run these things in real life, the winch will track, I believe, to your machine's movement. So like if I drive forward, the winch will automatically keep to your movement of your tracks. It's like an automated winch system. Unfortunately, we don't have this in this game. We have the ability to do it manually, and that's it. So you kind of got to ride the winch button while you're going up the hill to keep it nice and taut. And then you don't have to keep riding it. You can just watch the cable, and you'll see it kind of cinch out a bit, so you'll know it's getting loose. Oops, I missed that tree entirely. Oh man, I think my game just crashed. I've literally never had that happen before. Man, you guys got to experience that live. That's good. Now you guys got to see it. I've never actually had this game crash before. That's super, super sad. What a great Bunchy tutorial that was for the first few minutes there, though, wasn't it? Here we go. Try that again. Oh man, you know what's sad though? All that wood we just cut, it's all gonna be standing again. Tisk tisk. That's okay. We're gonna go whip through there real quick. Anyway, the cool point is at least you guys got to see that bunching tutorial. Oh, I still have my old buncher here. Whoa, that's so weird. Okay, well, you got to see that buncher, so I guess we're gonna use this buncher. I'm gonna have to look in the log and see if there's a reason why that happened. So that's new to me. Alright, well, we're gonna use this buncher. Have you guys ever seen the Pro Pack buncher? Here we go. I chose a blue head because it works great in the bush. So we're just gonna mass pile this. I wonder if that was something to do with the winch. I've used the winch quite a bit, but I've never had it do that before. That's okay. That's the joys of recording stuff. Sometimes it just doesn't go to plan. So we're gonna go lay this down. I'm gonna try to do it without the winch on this part, just because one, I don't really think I need it for most of this hill. Oh, I probably need to hit this key. There we go. And two, I think I can get most of the flat stuff there. I just need to pull myself up. Well, actually, you know what? This will be good, because I could show you guys the alternative to if you don't have a winch or don't want to use the winch. You can do some pretty redneck stuff, I'll tell you. So let's just do this all over again, because that was super fun. That's the true joy of video games, is if it messes up, you get to do it all over again. But if you roll a machine, or that would be the definition of crashing, I guess, in reality, it's a lot worse. So we should thank our lucky stars. So we're going to do this again. I'm going to try some different rednecky stuff to get up this hill without the winch, and you guys can have a good laugh. Maybe not the most recommended stuff, but things I've seen in real life and things I've heard work super well. Let's see here. Hold on. That tree's just being a bit of a wiener here. Hold on. Beep. There we go. Look. Get the bigger ones in there. They don't like to play nice. Okay, so another technique you can use to getting up this hill Let's stab out these. So this machine that I'm in right now also has the leveling ability. So we can always level as we go up the hill. I was going to show that in the last one as we got a little bit steeper there, but we didn't make it, unfortunately. We didn't make it. Let's pile this in here. Man, deja vu. It's like I've already cut these trees. So there we go. Bloop. Dump those in there. So again, we lost our processor pile that we made, but you guys can go back and watch that again and see what you missed. Okay, so I'm in a really rough spot here. My tracks are spinning. I'm not getting really good traction. So you can actually push the head into the ground to kind of walk your machine a bit, and then push it in the opposite direction where you actually want it to go. So here we are. We're kind of facing uphill. So you can level your machine out if you want by using the auto level. Oops, I'm slipping down the hill here. As you go up, you can watch your auto level as you go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys another technique you can do to pull your butt up the tree or up the hill. So turn your head off by pushing B as in Bravo. So now your head's not live. You're not actually going to cut the tree, but you can actually reach up to these trees and grab your arms around them like this and help pull yourself up the hill. Like so, until you get on a little bit more traction. And if it lets out, you better re-grab real fast because she'll slip out on you. Sometimes it works, sometimes it don't. You can actually move your tracks as you go too, to help pull yourself up the hill. And you can even do one of these where you lock your head onto the side and then pull yourself up that way too. Whoops, I think I got stuck between the two trees. Sketchy. Sketchy. But we made it up the hill without our winch, right? And I'm kind of locked in position here. I've seen guys in real life actually do that, where they pull themselves up. Obviously, it probably wouldn't be the best idea with these super scrawny little trees, but if you get a decent stump or a decent sized tree, you could probably do it. The other thing you can do is if you feel you're not getting traction, like I'm trying really bad, but it's slipping, stick your head out really far out this way and kind of give it a little shake like this. Just a little bit, and what that does is it changes the fulcrum point on your machine. And if you don't know what a fulcrum point is, go look it up in physics. It's a really good thing to know, especially if you ever use wheel loaders or skid steers. A fulcrum point, I think basically from what I've learned over the years, is kind of your center of mass, or where the mass of your machine is sitting. So if your fulcrum point when you're working with heavy machines like this is always changing. So right now, if I have no head on it, the fulcrum point of my machine might be direct center mass, might be rear based on how much weight is in your counterweight. It depends on the angle of your machine. So if you fill this big heavy head on the front full of heavy weight, what it's doing is you're now moving the fulcrum point. So pretend all of our weight is in the ass end of our machine here, and our fulcrum point is on our back tire. That's like the center of mass where the weight is distributed will be right there. So if I now go ahead and fill this head full of material, like heavy trees and stuff, well, now that fulcrum point, the mass is actually moving. So the fulcrum point's going maybe to the front of the tracks or center of the tracks, depending on how much weight and how far my boom is extended. You guys get a little physics lesson here too. So for instance, if my head is brought in really close to my machine, what I'm doing is as I bring that weight back towards me, I'm actually putting weight back to the rear of the machine because all that weight is shifting to the back. As I extend that arm out, the weight and the leverage point is actually going further out. So you'll see my machine starts to tip forward on its own because that weight is way out there. And that's basically what you're doing is you're changing the fulcrum point of your traction on the ground. So if I'm ever stuck on a hill and I'm not quite making it, bringing your bucket really close or your head really close is not helping you at all. You need to get your arm way out there as far as you can, like reach, and do one of these. And what it'll do is it'll put that traction on that front drive, and then you can actually sometimes drive your machine up the hill a lot easier. And I know that from reality because I've done that in real life as well. Climbing piles and stuff like that. So again, we're going up kind of a crappy little hill here. My machine's going to want to slide back a little bit. You're probably noticing that because it's not a great spot. I'm going to see if I can dump that right in there. So again, this isn't quite as cleanly as it was when we were pulling ourselves up the hill with the winch, but it's still working. So I'm going to wipe out the trees that are closest to me so that I don't get stuck on them or have to fight with them. I think there's one more. Yeah, this guy here I was going to grab. Whoop. So again, my fulcrum point is way over there. It's trackside. So my tracks are actually trying to slide backwards because all my weight's over there. So I'm going to actually put on my tracks a bit just to kind of keep a little bit of drive on them. And they're still going to want to slide back, but as I dump this load, it'll level back out again. And this is the joys of working on hills, especially in this game where the frictions are all over the place. And you're working with the cement trees that don't bend. So a little bit of a hill here. It's not like crazy steep, but as you can see, we do lose a bit of traction. So as you're climbing, you know, just work slow until you get to a nice flat spot. So like as I get up on this ridge, it's like, it's like a save point. You're like, good. Now I know I'm safe here because I'm not going to slide. I'm not going to rotate. And I'm not hooked up to a winch, so I have a lot more movement ability. Again, my fulcrum point's off. See, I got my head full of trees and my weight's over on that one side. So my track's trying here, but it's spinning. If I move that fulcrum point to the front and give it a little tap, look, suddenly my machine wants to drive forward. Isn't that interesting? So you guys learned a little bit about it. We had to learn about that when we were running wheel loaders, about the changing, well, and I think forklifts too are pretty much the same concept. The changing attributes of fulcrum points. And again, maybe don't quote me on some of the definitions of fulcrum points. I'm sure in the book it might say it differently, but I think that's the basic concept from what I've gathered over all the years of running all these weird machines and stuff. But very interesting stuff. Okay, so I'm going to chuck these here. Dump those there. We'll leave that there. Okay, so I'm going to call it for this video because we've already kind of punched into it a bit. So it was kind of neat because I got to show you guys a little bit about the leveling. I got to show you guys a little bit about the winch system before the game crashed there. Hopefully that doesn't happen very often. That's the first time I've had it happen to me. And yeah, showing you guys a little bit of tips and tricks about bunching up hills and playing with the leveling stuff. I don't know what is going on here. It's got gas or something. I'll lift that up a little bit. There you go. It's probably just that grinder node digging into the ground. But yeah, anyway, if you guys have any questions or anything about that, feel free to leave them in the comments. Hopefully that was somewhat interesting or helpful. And yeah, we'll catch you guys on the next one. See ya.